On behalf of the West End Committee of the Pocono Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank Ron Young with the PennDOT for coming with us today, joining us today to give us a report on what's going on in the West End and also the Route 80 expansion. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ron.
Thanks, Michael, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be back, albeit virtually, but it's good to always get in touch with the chambers through the region, especially the West End and Monroe. And I'm going to touch on just one thing that's non-road related or bridge related first, so everyone's aware. Real ID is the new federal ID requirements that have to be met for when you want to travel on airplanes or go to federal facilities. The federal government did extend it again, so now the deadline to get a real ID is May 2nd of 2023. And again, that's something you're going to need after May 3rd, of 2023, to board a domestic commercial flight or international flight or enter a federal building or a military installation. You will need that ID. So if you're looking to travel after that date in May of 2023, you should get yourself a real ID. You can still use a passport in lieu of a real ID, but then you're going to have to carry your license and your passport with you, even to go from here to Pittsburgh on an airplane. So it's up to you how you want to handle it. But if you want more info on that, go to penndot.gov/real ID. The first project I'm going to talk about is it's a smaller one. It's just a bridge. It's over to, and I apologize if I pronounce this wrong, but our folks say it's Pocono Creek in Polk Township. It's Mill Pond Road, otherwise known to us as State Route 3010. And it's a bridge replacement. It's going to be demolished and replaced. It's an existing two-span bridge, and it's going to be replaced with a single-span bridge. And it will be reconstructing the roadway approaches and doing some minor drainage work around the bridge as well. And when that is closed, it's going to be closing this year and would be finished this year as well. The detour will be on 209 and Gilbert Road. It's a very short detour. That's about a $1.4 million bridge replacement, and the contract has been awarded to Minnichie Incorporated of DuPont, Pennsylvania. Now, currently, there is another bridge on Gilbert Road, real close to the Mill Pond Road bridge, that's got a single lane condition with stop signs on either end, and that's under a bridge maintenance contract. That's not getting replaced. It's just having some repairs made to it under a contract to repair 6 bridges in Monroe County. And that is, again, currently being worked on, and they expect to lift that single lane pattern with the stop signs in mid to late June and put it back to two-way conditions without any stop conditions. So for folks in that area, once that bridge is done, that's when they anticipate starting then on that Mill Pond Road bridge, which again will be closed. We are in the preliminary stages. The contractor is out on 115 and 209. Right there by the Pleasant Valley School District in Chestnut Hill Township. That's a big project that's been in design for quite some time. I've reported it to you folks a few times over the years, but it is underway. It calls for several roundabouts, which we do know that the school district had some concerns over and still has concerns over, but we feel once they're installed and people get used to them, that it will be a much needed improvement to that for congestion and safety in that area. Calls for some widening at the intersection, putting in the roundabout at 209 and 115. The entrance to the school district there in the school, at Pleasant Valley Lane. Again, the approaches at 209 and 115 will also be widened out and reconstructed, and that they're tearing down some of the structures in that area, the properties that we acquired for the project currently, and then once that's completed and they relocate some utilities out of the way, then they plan to get in major construction under that, and that's a multi-year project. That's going to go through November of 2024. And it's $18.4 million contract, and Latona Trucking Incorporated out of Pittston, Pennsylvania, is the contractor on that project. Looking ahead, you can anticipate seeing some restrictions and things in that area, and we will alert the public whenever things are going to be changing in terms of traffic patterns, etc. But I do want to give you just a little bit of background on roundabouts. They're not the old New Jersey big traffic circles that people seem to always compare them to and think that that's what we're installing. A modern roundabout is much different design. They're designed to handle pretty decent volumes of traffic, but the biggest thing they do is they, versus a traditional signalized intersection, they reduce the amount of crashes and fatalities significantly. We did a study of our own roundabouts, of 11 different roundabouts throughout the state that were put in through the year 2000 and 2017. And we found on our PennDOT roundabouts that the fatalities from crashes at the intersections were reduced by 100%. And serious injuries were also reduced by 100%. Now, minor injuries still occurred, and they were reduced by about 95%. So you do the math, and you can see that they're much safer. And the reason for that is the characteristics. They're circular shape in nature, of course, because they're a roundabout. Traffic coming into the roundabout has to yield to traffic in the roundabout. But just the geometry alone of the roundabout and how you enter it forces a slower speed of traffic. You can't go through a roundabout at 50 miles per hour. You can't go through at 40, maybe 30 if you are Mario Andretti, but most of them are designed to be around 18 to 25 miles per hour going through them. And that sounds slow, if you're used to going faster, but you get through the intersection, you don't stop. We find, and at this particular intersection, it happens all the time. When traffic stops for the red signal, it stacks up, and then only a certain amount gets through. Roundabouts, it tends to keep traffic flowing a little better and reduces congestion. And when you have that reduced congestion, you also have a secondary benefit of better air quality, because when cars are moving, even at a slower pace, they don't emit as many carbon dioxide emissions as if a car is sitting still waiting for the traffic signal to change. Also, when you have a major event like, say, a Hurricane Sandy, or a car hits a telephone pole in the area and knocks the power out, roundabouts don't need any electricity to run to control the traffic. So they will operate all the time without any need for electricity, so they're not going to cause any problems when there's a power outage. So we install roundabouts frequently now. We look at, our design engineers look at a roundabout versus a traditional signalized intersection. They compare the pros and cons and all the things involved in terms of impacts to the community, properties, geometry of the road, drainage, etc., and they make a final determination as to which is the better option. And for this project, roundabouts were deemed to be the best option for that area and to move traffic. And people are also saying to us, oh, you're going to have roundabouts close together, not going to work. We found we have some in other parts of the state where they are close together and they do work. We are down in our district, in District 5, which covers Berks, Carbon, Lehigh, Monroe, Northampton, and Schuylkill counties. We have the 222 corridor in northern Berks County, south of Lehigh. We're putting in multiple roundabouts on that corridor, and so we are looking at, quote, roundabout corridors as well. So they do work. They're safer than traditional intersections, and once people get adjusted to them, they do move traffic. We do know the school district has concerns about students maneuvering through the roundabouts, but we feel if they're properly educated and go through, again, you can't go through them fast physically. You're not going to be able to, so that should be a benefit. We even have roundabouts in Pennsylvania where horse and buggies in the Amish areas and Old Order Mennonite areas are able to traverse safely through the roundabouts. So it is a good option for all modes of travel. We do have coming up a betterment project on Route 209 in Hamilton and Stroud Townships. It's going to be basically between Interstate 80 and Route 33 split. That's going to go to bid this summer. We hope, if the bids come in and everything's good, that we'll award a contract hopefully by July, August timeframe, and that would be a roughly 1-year project. And that's basically a betterment project. Is we do milling and resurfacing, update the guide rail, do some drainage inlet repairs. That one includes a bridge latex overlay on one of the bridges. They'll do some sealing of any cracks that are in the road before they pave over it. So it's not a full-blown reconstruction project, but it's still a pretty significant improvement for that stretch of 209. And that's estimated to be $3 to $4 million for that project. And then we had a Glenbrook Road in Stroud Township it's on a hillside. We had some slope failure there from some storms that came through the area. Also, it damaged a bridge. So we have a project that's in design, emergency contract to make some repairs to the slope there and the bridge and get things back open. It is currently closed, but unfortunately we're going to have to take some time to get through the environmental clearances. The area is surrounded by federally protected lands, so we're working with the federal government to get environmental clearances for that. And when we do, we hope to put a contract out hopefully by mid to late June, and that would be what we call a design build contract, where the contractor does the designing of the repairs as well as building the contract. So we're hoping that once that gets awarded, they can do the design and build and get everything underway and get completed within roughly a year to a year and a half. And we have identified funding for that in the $1 to $1.5 million range. And again, that's an emergency repair contract. And we realize there is at least one particular business real close to there that's being significantly impacted, and we can't move much faster because we have to work through the appropriate clearances and coordinate with other agencies. So we're doing our best to get believe it or not, getting from when this road closed to getting a contract possibly this summer and getting it out that quickly is for us very quick. Normally it would take 5 to 10 years during a traditional project to get it through those phases. We're doing it in a couple of years. So even though it's not quick enough for the folks in the region, we are moving it as fast as we can. And they're really the projects in the area that are in the West End that are either ongoing or about to start this year. I'm going to shift now to the Michael mentioned the Interstate 80 reconstruction and the status of that. We're still moving that through design. That is a huge project when it's going to be built. It will reconstruct the interstate in Stroud Township and East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg boroughs. And some folks in the area are questioning our methods and why we're needing to do what we do. The roadway was designed and built 40, 50 years ago. It is a roadway that's old. The roadway base, it needs to be reconstructed from the base up. We've done drilling out there, taking core samples, and the base of the road and the sub base, it's all in bad shape, and it needs to be just reconstructed from the ground up. And in order to do that and do that properly and keep 4 lanes of traffic open on the interstate while they're doing this work, we have to widen the footprint. There are some folks, and when the project is done, it's going to be for that section, a 6-lane section of Interstate 80, and some people in the region are questioning why we are going to do that. Well, for one, when we do the work, we got to widen that footprint anyway. We're going to take that right away just to shift lanes and do the work that needs to be done, and then we feel that once we already have that wider footprint, the capacity of that road, the volumes are projected to increase as such that our engineers give them there's level of service ratings from A through F, kind of like your old report cards you would get in school. And to keep that at a decent level of service, we would need those additional lanes capacity. We're projecting out traffic volumes out to year 2045. And that is just to keep it at a level of service of E or better, according to the design team. So, and that's again in 2045. It'll be better between now and then once the road is constructed. But there's a number of reasons why we need to do this project. One big one is safety. The crash rate on that section of Interstate 80 is much higher than the statewide average for a roadway of that type. It's got a high percentage of rear end crashes and side swipe crashes, and also hit fixed object crashes. A fixed object is just exactly what that says. Any fixed object off the road, could be a guide rail, could be a tree, could be a rock, whatever. So the road, again, was built decades ago, designed even further back, and the design was not for today's standards, not for today's speeds, not for today's types of vehicles. So the acceleration and deceleration lanes coming on and off the ramps are substandard. Anyone getting on and off of those ramps knows that. A couple of them, you really have to go from a dead stop many times and try to speed up and get into fast-moving traffic, and it's dangerous. So we're going to extend the accel and decel lanes for the ramps. We're going to replace a lot of the bridges along there, which also have met their lifespan. They need to be replaced with or without reconstructing Interstate 80, the bridges over 80, as well as the bridges on 80 that go over other roadways and other bridges, other entities. So the weaving in that area is real bad too. We got a lot of ramps and interchanges close together, so you have a lot of interaction going on, and that tends to slow down traffic as well as increase conflicts, which results in increased crashes. So if you have some wider area, especially some wider shoulders, inside and outside shoulders, for when incidents do occur, for people to pull over safely and wait for help, that helps things immensely to keep things moving and also to clear up any incidents. It also provides an extra avenue for emergency vehicles to get to an incident. If they have an inside or outside shoulder, they can use to drive up, whereas most of this section has no, the whole section has no inside shoulder, but parts of it also have no outside shoulder. So we want to reduce the number of incidents, but also when there are incidents, reduce the response time for emergency vehicles to get to people and provide us help. So the roadway, again, has deteriorated. A lot of the bridge components of the bridges along the corridor are deteriorated. Again, the pavement was constructed in the 50s and 60s. It's reached the end of its useful life by far. It's in poor condition. We have ratings from the International Roughness Index. Every couple of years they rate all of our roads in Pennsylvania. This section is rated in poor condition. The I-80 bridge over Bridge Street is rated in poor condition. So if something's not done to replace that soon, it will cost more to just repair it than replace it because it's deteriorated. And again, no need to tell anyone who travels this road, it's congested. We have current traffic volumes, depending on what part of it you're on, that range from 47,000 to 70,000 vehicles per day. And right now that's about 12% trucks, and the truck traffic is also increasing as well as regular traffic. And by the 2045, our engineers project that the volumes are going to be in the 90 to 133,000 vehicles per day range for that same section. So that you do the math, it's going to get more congested if we don't do anything. The projections are, without doing anything, the level of service is going to be, especially between exits 304 and 307, are going to be F. And we don't go worse than F, but it would probably be, if you could give it a worse than F, it would probably get that. So that's another goal of the project, is to improve congestion. Mobility is another factor. All interstates are part of what's called the Strategic Highway Network System, and they're roads that are deemed necessary to support the Department of Defense's operations for the defense of the country. And as a component of that system, all structures on a StraightNet roadway need a minimum vertical clearance of 16 feet 6 inches. And we've got several bridges along that corridor that do not meet that criteria, so we need to upgrade those as well. So when we do all this work, that's why you can see it's a very large, very complex project. And the U.S. Census Bureau does what they call an American Community Survey. And their most recent one showed that they called it the East Stroudsburg metro area. And they said it has among the longest average one-way travel times in the nation, clocking in at 37.9 minutes. And that surpasses even the highest rate in California. So all the data, no matter who you're getting it from, shows that it is a congested corridor and something needs to be done to improve things in that area. So the total project length is about 8 miles. It passes through, again, 3 municipalities: Stroud Township and the boroughs of Stroudsburg and East Stroudsburg. The full extent of the project by exit is just west of the exit 303 interchange to just east of exit 307. The cost estimate is in the $400 to $600 million range. And we're looking at, hopefully, we're not 100% sure on the funding scenarios yet, or if we may have to break it up into some several smaller contracted projects to fund it properly over a longer period of time. But we're hoping that if we can get one big contract and we can put it out to bid, we could do that maybe within the next 2 to 3 years. And then construction, because it's so complex and we need the Federal Highway Administration is because they would be funding about 80% of this project. They are stating that they want 2 lanes of traffic open in eastbound and westbound on Interstate 80 when the work is being done the majority of the time. So that extends the time frame. So it would be about 3 to 6 years under construction. And that's about the big picture of the project. We do have a project website where you can get more into details. You can look at all the different options we looked at before we chose what we're moving forward on. You can see pictures, you can see diagrams, you can see some schematics of what the engineers put together. That's i80project.com. It's a separate independent website from the PennDOT website. So it's i80project.com, and we encourage you to go on there, take a look at things, and that's where you'll be able to keep up on what's happening with the project as well. I'm going to shift gears just to a couple of other things. We have our PennDOT website, penndot.gov. It's a very informative website. There's a ton of information on there. If you get a chance to go on there, you can get lost in it for a while, but one of the key things on there that you can check out is our construction and planned projects section. And just go to penndot.gov, look for that link, that button for construction and planned projects, and click on that. You can bring up a map of any county in the region. Or I see Christine's on from Senator Scabella's office. You can bring up a legislative district from any legislative office and see what projects are currently under construction or are in the future on what's called the 12-year program or the Transportation Improvement Program for the Northeastern Pennsylvania Alliance, which is what Monroe County is part of, and see all the work we have planned. But I do want to stipulate that we do not have enough money to do everything that's needed. So we work with the regional planners as well as the Northeastern Pennsylvania Alliance, as well as the elected officials to do our best to, as a group, prioritize what can be done and what needs to be done under the current budgets that we have. But there's a couple reasons. The biggest reason why we don't have as much money as we should have is the efficiency of vehicles and also the advent of hybrid and electric vehicles, where the majority of the money that comes in from the federal and state funds for roads and bridges comes from the gas tax, and that's it's just not cutting it anymore. So we do have the governor has implemented what's called the T-ROC. It's a commission to look at revenue sources, alternative revenue sources that could be proposed that the legislature might take action on if they agree, to kind of recoup some of that money lost from reduced gas taxes and find a way to make sure everybody's paying their fair share. You may have heard we recently announced we're looking at tolling some bridges throughout the state. We're still working through that process. It's very early, but we've identified the bridges that we want to toll. In the one closest to the west end of the Poconos is the Interstate 80 bridge between Carbon and Luzerne counties, and we are working through talking to local people and looking at alternatives. Like we're having engineers analyze everything. What it would do, diversionary routes, if there, a certain number of people don't want to pay a toll, they may get off and try to cut through on secondary roads. And we're looking at the volumes that might create and what we can do to mitigate that. But it is still very early. It's just under the public-private partnership, or P3 law, that was passed several years ago. It is currently a legal option that the Department of Transportation can do. We do know there are some legislators in Harrisburg that are looking to stop that and pass legislation and get it changed or stopped, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But for now, we're pursuing it until laws change, and we cannot. But that's one avenue that we're looking at to bring up money, and that money will only be used to replace those bridges pay for the projects. All those bridges that are identified are ones that need to be replaced. So they're big bridges. They're what we call major bridges. They're millions. Some are even tens of millions of dollars to replace, and it will provide that money to a contract under the P3 law over a 30-year period to pay for that construction. And then if it gets paid back under that same time frame, then there is the possibility of maybe using revenues for other projects in that same planning organization area. But again, it would be a finite time frame. It's looking at about 30 years, and then it would be the tolls on that particular structure under the current proposal would be removed. And then it is springtime, and some parts of the area feels already like summertime, but we want to remind people that this is the time of year where work zones are kicking in full force. Be careful driving through the work zones, please, for the protection of all the contractor workers, our PennDOT workers, as well as the motorists themselves. And also be alert for motorcyclists and bicyclists. There's going to be more of those out when the weather is warm in these conditions, so keep an eye out for them and be safe.